Sarah Jenkins never planned to own a pit bull. She was a cat person through and through, living in her small apartment with 3 rescued cats, Whiskers, Mittens, and Princess. Her world revolved around quiet evenings, soft purring, and the gentle chaos that came with feline companions. But life has a funny way of changing plans when you least expect it. It was a rainy Tuesday morning when Sarah heard the whimpering. She was getting ready for work, rushing around her kitchen making coffee, when a strange sound caught her attention. At first she thought it was one of her cats in distress, but the cry was different, deeper, more desperate. Following the sound, she opened her front door and gasped. There, huddled in a soggy cardboard box by her doorstep, was the tiniest pit bull puppy she had ever seen. The little creature couldn't have been more than 6 weeks old, with oversized paws and ribs showing through his thin coat. His eyes were barely open and he was shivering uncontrollably in the morning chill. A hastily written note was taped to the box. "Please take care of him. I can't anymore." Sarah's heart broke instantly. She had always been wary of pit bulls, influenced by negative stories in the media, but looking at this helpless baby, all she could see was a creature in desperate need. Without thinking twice, she scooped up the box and brought it inside, her 3 cats immediately gathering around to investigate the newcomer. The puppy was in terrible condition. His fur was matted and dirty. He was severely underweight and he had a small cut on his left ear. Sarah quickly wrapped him in a warm towel and called in sick to work. This little guy needed immediate attention, and she couldn't bear the thought of leaving him alone. As she cleaned him gently with a warm washcloth, the puppy's eyes finally opened fully, revealing the most beautiful amber color Sarah had ever seen. He looked up at her with such trust and gratitude that she felt tears welling up in her eyes. In that moment, she knew there was no way she could take him to a shelter. This little fighter was meant to be part of her family. The cats, surprisingly, seemed to accept the newcomer immediately. Whiskers, the oldest and most maternal of the 3, began grooming the puppy's head with her rough tongue. Princess, usually the most territorial, curled up beside the box as if standing guard. Mittens, ever the curious one, kept sniffing the puppy and purring loudly. Sarah spent the entire day nursing the puppy back to health. She fed him small amounts of puppy formula every few hours, kept him warm, and watched as he slowly began to show signs of improvement. By evening, he was trying to stand on his wobbly legs, and Sarah knew he was going to make it. She decided to call him Milo, a name that seemed to fit his gentle nature. As night fell, Sarah faced a dilemma about where Milo should sleep. She had always let her cats sleep on her bed, and something told her that Milo would feel safest there too, so she carefully placed him in a small basket beside her pillow, with Whiskers immediately claiming the spot next to him. That first night changed everything. Sarah woke up several times to check on Milo, but each time she found him peacefully sleeping, surrounded by her 3 cats who had somehow arranged themselves as his protectors. It was as if they had silently decided that this little pit bull was now part of their pride. The next morning brought new challenges. Milo was stronger and more alert, but he was also completely unfamiliar with normal puppy behavior. He had clearly been separated from his mother and littermates too early, missing out on crucial socialization with other dogs. But what Sarah didn't realize was that this early separation would lead to something extraordinary. Milo would learn everything he needed to know about life from his 3 feline teachers. As the days passed, Sarah watched in amazement as Milo began to mimic the cats' behaviors. He would sit by their food bowls during mealtimes, trying to eat the same food they did. He attempted to groom himself the way they did, licking his paws and trying to clean behind his ears. Most adorably, he would curl up in the sunny spots by the window, just like his cat siblings. Sarah quickly realized that traditional dog training methods wouldn't work with Milo. He wasn't responding to typical puppy commands or showing interest in dog toys. Instead, he was fascinated by everything the cats did. When they used their scratching posts, Milo would stand on his hind legs and try to do the same. When they climbed onto high surfaces, he would attempt to follow, though his jumping skills needed serious work. The breakthrough moment came when Sarah returned home from work one evening to find Milo sitting perfectly still in the living room window, exactly like the cats did every day. His little body was positioned in the same alert, observant pose, and he was watching the world outside with the same intense focus. In that moment, Sarah realized that Milo wasn't just living with cats. He was becoming one of them. As weeks turned into months, Milo's transformation became more remarkable with each passing day. Sarah watched in wonder as her Pitbull puppy developed habits that would make any cat owner do a double take. The most surprising change was his approach to affection. Instead of the typical bouncy, energetic greetings most dogs gave, Milo had learned the subtle art of feline communication. Every morning when Sarah's alarm went off, Milo would stretch his entire body just like the cats did, extending his front legs far forward and arching his back. He had perfected what Sarah laughingly called the morning cat stretch, and it was impossibly cute to watch a pit bull perform this graceful feline ritual. After his stretch, he would approach Sarah with the same gentle head bonks that Whiskers used to show affection, pressing his large square head against her leg with surprising delicacy. The food situation had become particularly interesting. While Sarah made sure Milo ate proper dog food for his nutrition, he had developed very particular eating habits that mirrored his cat family. He would eat slowly and methodically just like the cats instead of the typical dog behavior of wolfing down food quickly. More amusing still, he had learned to ask for food the cat way, sitting patiently by his bowl and staring at Sarah with unblinking intensity until she noticed his needs. Milo's sleeping arrangements had evolved too. Initially, Sarah had bought him a traditional dog bed, but Milo showed no interest in it. Instead, he preferred to sleep curled up in tight circles just like cats do, often choosing the most unlikely spots. She would find him squeezed into cardboard boxes that were clearly too small for him, or perched precariously on the arm of the sofa, trying to balance like his feline siblings despite being 3 times their size. The grooming behavior was perhaps the most endearing aspect of Milo's cat-like transformation. He had become obsessively clean, spending considerable time each day licking his paws and attempting to clean his face and ears. Sarah often found him trying to groom the cats in return, his large pink tongue carefully cleaning Mittens' head, while the orange tabby purred contentedly. The mutual grooming sessions had become a daily bonding ritual among all 4 pets, but it was Milo's hunting instincts that really showcased how completely he had adopted cat behavior. Despite being a pit bull, he had developed the patience and stealth of a predator. Sarah first noticed this when she found Milo crouched low in the hallway, his entire body tense and focused, watching a dust bunny blow across the floor with the same intensity that Princess showed when stalking a mouse. When the dust bunny moved, Milo pounced with surprising grace, though his large size made the attack far less subtle than his cat teachers intended. The apartment had also been rearranged to accommodate Milo's new lifestyle preferences. Sarah had installed additional cat trees and perches, only to discover that Milo desperately wanted to use them too. Watching a growing pit bull attempt to climb a cat tree designed for 10-pound animals was both hilarious and heartwarming. Eventually, Sarah invested in sturdier climbing structures that could support Milo's weight, and he spent hours each day perched on various levels, surveying his kingdom like the cats did. Neighbors in Sarah's apartment building began to notice the unusual sounds coming from her unit. Instead of typical dog barking, they heard an odd collection of noises that seemed to come from Milo's attempts to communicate like his cat family. He had developed a repertoire of sounds that included soft chirps, trills, and even attempts at purring. The purring was particularly amusing, a deep, rumbling sound that was clearly his interpretation of the cat's contented purrs, though it sounded more like a small engine than the gentle vibration of feline contentment. Training Milo became an exercise in creativity. Traditional dog commands like sit and stay meant nothing to him, but he responded beautifully to the subtle signals that cats understood. A slow blink from Sarah would calm him down, and he had learned to interpret her body language with the same sensitivity that cats showed. When Sarah wanted him to come to her, she found that making the soft clicking sounds she used to call the cats worked perfectly. The litter box situation had become particularly interesting. While Milo obviously couldn't use the cat's litter boxes, he had developed a fascination with them and would often sit nearby watching the cats with great interest. Sarah eventually realized that Milo had developed very specific bathroom habits. He preferred privacy and would always go to the same corner of the balcony, carefully covering his waist with whatever material was available, just like cats do with litter. As Milo grew larger, his attempts to maintain cat-like behavior became increasingly amusing. He would still try to squeeze into tiny spaces, often getting stuck halfway into boxes or cat beds that had fit him months earlier. His determination to nap in sunny windowsills led to several furniture rearrangements, as Sarah had to reinforce surfaces to support his growing weight. The most touching development was the way Milo had learned to show comfort and support to his family members. When one of the cats was sick or upset, Milo would lie down beside them and offer gentle licks and warm companionship, just as the cats did for each other. When Sarah had a particularly stressful day, Milo seemed to sense her mood and would approach with the quiet, undemanding presence that cats were famous for, simply being near without overwhelming her with typical dog energy. The real test of Milo's unusual upbringing came when Sarah decided it was time to venture outside. Most dogs lived for walks and outdoor adventures, but Milo had never shown any interest in the great outdoors. In fact, when Sarah first tried to put a leash on him, he reacted with the same horror that most cats showed toward such contraptions, freezing in place, walking backward awkwardly, and looking at Sarah as if she had betrayed his trust completely. The first attempt at a walk was a disaster. Milo planted himself firmly by the apartment door and refused to move. When Sarah gently encouraged him forward, he crouched low to the ground and tried to slink along the walls, exactly like a nervous cat in an unfamiliar environment. Other dog owners in the building stared in amazement as they watched Sarah practically carry her pit bull down the hallway, while he clung to her like a frightened kitten. Once outside, Milo's behavior became even more cat-like. Instead of the excited sniffing and exploring that most dogs did, he moved with extreme caution, staying close to buildings and avoiding open spaces. Every unexpected sound, a car door slamming, children laughing, other dogs barking, made him freeze and look around nervously. Sarah realized that Milo had never learned that the outside world was a place for fun and adventure. To him, it was simply a vast, unpredictable territory that needed to be navigated carefully. The breakthrough came when Sarah decided to try a different approach. Instead of traditional walks, she began taking Milo to her friend Maria's backyard, which was enclosed and quiet. Here, Milo could explore at his own pace without the overwhelming stimulation of busy streets. Gradually, he began to show more confidence. Though his exploration style remained distinctly feline, he would move from hiding spot to hiding spot, behind bushes, under patio furniture, along fence lines, always maintaining escape routes and vantage points. When something caught his interest, he would approach with the same careful stalking behavior he had learned from watching the cats hunt dust bunnies in the apartment. His favorite discovery was a butterfly that had landed on a flower. Milo spent 20 minutes crouched in perfect stillness, watching its every movement with the patience of a cat, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Other dogs in the neighborhood began to take notice of Milo during these backyard sessions. The first time a neighbor's golden retriever bounded over to say hello in typical friendly dog fashion, both Sarah and Milo were in for a shock. The golden retriever approached with tail wagging and body wiggling, the universal dog greeting for, "Let's be friends and play." Milo's response was pure cat. He arched his back, made himself as large as possible, and issued a warning growl that sounded more confused than threatening. The golden retriever, completely bewildered by this unusual response, tried harder to engage Milo in play, bouncing around him in circles and play-bowing repeatedly. Milo, interpreting this behavior through his cat-learned social rules, became more and more uncomfortable. Finally, he did something that left everyone speechless. He climbed a tree. Well, he attempted to climb a tree. The sight of a 40-pound pit bull scrambling up the trunk of a small maple tree, using his claws and sheer determination like the cats had taught him, was something that no one was prepared for. He made it about 4 feet up before the combination of his weight and the tree's flexibility brought him gently back down to earth. But the message was clear. When stressed, Milo's instinct was to go vertical, just like his feline family. Word of the tree-climbing pit bull spread quickly through the neighborhood. People began stopping by Maria's yard during Milo's visits, not to see aggressive or intimidating pit bull behavior, but to witness something completely unprecedented. A dog that acted like a cat in every way possible. Children were particularly fascinated, and Milo seemed to respond well to their quiet curiosity, often approaching them with the same careful interest that cats showed toward new people. Sarah started documenting Milo's unique behaviors with photos and videos. The images showed a muscular pit bull perched on fence posts like a bird, crouched in hunting positions over fallen leaves, and sitting perfectly still in meditation-like poses that cats were famous for. Each photo challenged everything people thought they knew about Pitbull behavior. The socialization challenges continued, though. When Milo encountered other cats outdoors, his behavior was fascinating to observe. He would approach them using all the proper cat etiquette he had learned: slow movements, averted eyes to show he wasn't threatening, and the gentle chirping sounds he had developed. Most cats were initially terrified by his size, but once they realized he was speaking their language, many became curious about this strange giant who seemed to understand their ways. One particularly memorable encounter involved a small black cat named Shadow who lived next door to Maria. Shadow was known for being extremely skittish around dogs, but when he met Milo, something magical happened. Milo approached using perfect cat body language, even lying down to make himself appear smaller and less threatening. After several minutes of careful evaluation, Shadow cautiously approached and actually began grooming Milo's face, apparently deciding that despite his size, this creature was clearly one of them. The relationship between Milo and Shadow became a neighborhood sensation. People would gather to watch the unlikely pair interact, with Shadow often perched on Milo's back as they explored the yard together. Milo would carry Shadow around like a living backpack, both animals completely comfortable with the arrangement that defied all conventional wisdom about cat and dog relationships. These outdoor adventures also revealed another amazing aspect of Milo's personality: his problem-solving abilities. When faced with obstacles like high fences or steep surfaces, he would study them with the same analytical approach that cats used. He had learned patience and strategy from his feline teachers, qualities that served him well when navigating the complexities of the outside world. Unlike typical dogs who might bark or paw at barriers, Milo would sit quietly and observe, looking for alternative routes or waiting for the right moment to make his move. Sarah's veterinarian, Dr. Rodriguez, had been treating cats and dogs for over 20 years. But Milo presented challenges she had never encountered before. During Milo's first checkup, Dr. Rodriguez was prepared for a typical Pitbull examination: potentially some resistance, high energy, and the usual dog behaviors. Instead, she found herself face-to-face with a dog who behaved like he was at a cat appointment. Milo entered the examination room with the cautious, measured steps of a nervous cat. Instead of exploring the room or trying to greet Dr. Rodriguez enthusiastically like most dogs would, he found the corner that offered the best view of all exits and settled there, watching everything with alert, unblinking eyes. When Dr. Rodriguez approached with her stethoscope, Milo didn't wag his tail or show typical dog submission signals. Instead, he allowed the examination with the tolerant patience of a cat who had resigned himself to necessary medical attention. The most surprising moment came when Dr. Rodriguez needed to examine Milo's ears. Most dogs either loved ear attention or fought it vigorously, but Milo did something completely unexpected. He began to purr. Well, his version of purring anyway. The deep rumbling sound filled the examination room, and Dr. Rodriguez stopped mid-examination, staring at Sarah in complete bewilderment. "In all my years of practice," Dr. Rodriguez said, shaking her head in amazement, "I have never heard a dog make that sound during a medical examination. He's actually enjoying this, isn't he?" Sarah confirmed that Milo had learned this behavior from the cats, who often purred when receiving attention they enjoyed, even at the vet's office. The blood draw presented another unique challenge. Most dogs required some form of restraint during blood collection, but Milo approached it with feline stoicism. He held perfectly still, occasionally making soft chirping sounds of minor complaint, but never struggling or showing aggression. Dr. Rodriguez commented that he was easier to handle than most of her cat patients, who often required more dramatic restraint measures. But the real revelation came when Dr. Rodriguez discussed Milo's overall health and development. Despite his unusual upbringing, or perhaps because of it, Milo was in exceptional physical and mental condition. His stress levels were remarkably low. His socialization with the cats had given him excellent emotional regulation skills, and his unique lifestyle had kept him mentally stimulated and physically active in ways that traditional dog ownership might not have achieved. This is fascinating from a behavioral standpoint, Dr. Rodriguez explained to Sarah. Milo has developed coping mechanisms and social skills that are actually superior to many dogs raised in traditional environments. His ability to read subtle body language, his patience, and his emotional intelligence are remarkable. He's created his own unique way of being a dog. The visit revealed another interesting aspect of Milo's development, his relationship with other animals at the veterinary clinic. The waiting room typically segregated cats and dogs to prevent stress and potential conflicts, but Milo seemed to exist in a category all his own. When a nervous orange tabby in a carrier began crying, Milo approached the carrier and lay down beside it, making soft, comforting sounds until the cat calmed down. The cat's owner watched in amazement as her typically anxious pet relaxed completely in the presence of this gentle giant. Word of Milo's unique behavior began spreading through Dr. Rodriguez's practice. She started recommending that clients with particularly anxious cats schedule their appointments at the same time as Milo's visits, because his calming presence seemed to help other animals relax. Several cat owners reported that their pets were less stressed after encountering Milo in the waiting room. This led to Dr. Rodriguez suggesting something unprecedented, that Milo might be an excellent candidate for therapy animal training, specifically for working with cats in veterinary settings. His ability to communicate in cat language while maintaining the gentle, stable temperament of a well-socialized dog could make him uniquely valuable in helping traumatized or anxious felines. The training process for therapy work revealed even more of Milo's remarkable abilities. He instinctively understood when animals were in distress and would approach them using appropriate calming signals. With scared cats, he would make himself smaller by lying down and avoiding direct eye contact. With anxious dogs, he would use more traditional dog body language, though still maintaining his characteristic gentleness and patience. The therapy animal evaluator Jennifer Walsh had never seen anything quite like Milo. Most therapy dogs are selected for their ability to work with humans, she explained to Sarah. But Milo has this incredible gift for interspecies communication. He's like a translator between the cat and dog worlds. I've watched him calm animals that experienced veterinarians couldn't help. During one memorable training session, Milo was introduced to a feral kitten that had been brought to the clinic after being found injured. The kitten was terrified, hissing and striking at anyone who approached. Traditional methods of calming the kitten had failed, and the staff was preparing for a difficult examination under sedation. But when Milo was allowed near the kitten's cage, something extraordinary happened. Milo approached the cage and simply lay down nearby, not looking directly at the kitten but positioning himself as a calm, non-threatening presence. He began making the soft chirping sounds he had learned from his cat family, sounds that seemed to communicate safety and understanding. Gradually, over the course of an hour, the kitten's defensive behavior decreased. Eventually, the kitten approached the front of the cage and actually began responding to Milo's vocalizations with small chirps of its own. By the end of the session, the kitten was calm enough for examination without sedation, and the veterinary staff was able to treat its injury successfully. The kitten's transformation in the presence of Milo was so remarkable that Dr. Rodriguez began documenting these interactions for potential publication in veterinary behavioral journals. The success with the feral kitten led to more opportunities for Milo to work with difficult cases at the clinic. He became particularly valuable when working with cats that had been traumatized by negative experiences with dogs. His patient, gentle approach and his ability to communicate using feline body language helped rebuild these cats' trust and confidence around other animals. The transformation of Milo's reputation in the community began slowly, one encounter at a time. Sarah lived in a neighborhood where pit bulls were viewed with suspicion and fear, where parents pulled their children closer when they saw the distinctive broad head and muscular build of the breed. But Milo was about to challenge every preconceived notion these people held. The first major shift happened at the local coffee shop where Sarah often stopped for her morning latte. The owner, Mrs. Chen, had always been friendly to Sarah, but had made it clear that dogs weren't welcome inside. However, she had never specified anything about the small outdoor seating area. One sunny Saturday morning, Sarah decided to test the waters by sitting outside with Milo. Instead of the typical dog behavior of sniffing around, begging for food or trying to greet every passerby, Milo simply sat beside Sarah's chair in perfect stillness, watching the world go by with the serene composure of a meditation teacher. His posture was elegant and alert, but completely non-threatening. When a small child dropped a toy nearby and began crying, Milo's response shocked everyone watching. Rather than barking or showing excitement at the child's distress, Milo slowly approached the crying toddler and gently picked up the dropped toy in his mouth. He then sat directly in front of the child and carefully placed the toy at the little one's feet, backing away respectfully to give space. The child's tears stopped immediately, replaced by fascination at this gentle giant who seemed to understand exactly what was needed. The child's mother, who had initially moved to protect her daughter from the approaching Pitbull, stood frozen in amazement. "I've never seen anything like that," she whispered to Sarah. He's like a therapy dog or something." Word of the incident spread quickly through the coffee shop, and soon Mrs. Chen emerged to see what all the excitement was about. Mrs. Chen observed Milo for several minutes, watching as he maintained his calm, cat-like composure despite the growing crowd of curious onlookers. When she learned about his unique upbringing and his therapy training, her entire attitude shifted. "Any animal that can bring such peace to a distressed child is welcome in my establishment," she declared, effectively making Milo the first dog ever granted access to the coffee shop's outdoor area. This small victory opened doors to bigger opportunities. Dr. Rodriguez had been corresponding with researchers at the local university who were studying animal behavior and interspecies relationships. When she shared Milo's story and the documentation of his unique behaviors, they immediately wanted to meet this remarkable dog who was challenging everything they thought they knew about canine development and socialization. Professor Martinez from the Animal Behavior Department was particularly intrigued by Milo's case. "What you're describing defies conventional wisdom about critical socialization periods in dogs," she explained to Sarah during their first meeting. "The fact that Milo learned complex social behaviors from cats and successfully integrated them into his own behavioral repertoire suggests a level of cognitive flexibility that we rarely see." The university team wanted to conduct formal studies with Milo, examining his brain activity during various interactions and comparing his behavioral responses to those of typically raised dogs. But more immediately, they were interested in Milo's potential as an educational ambassador for his breed. Professor Martinez had been looking for ways to address negative stereotypes about pit bulls, and Milo represented something unprecedented. A pit bull whose behavior directly contradicted every negative assumption people held about the breed. The first public presentation took place at a community center in a neighborhood where breed-specific legislation was being debated. The room was filled with residents who had come to argue for restrictions on pit bull ownership, convinced that all dogs of this breed were inherently dangerous. Sarah was nervous as she walked Milo into the hostile environment, but Milo himself seemed completely unaffected by the tension in the room. As Professor Martinez began her presentation about dog behavior and the importance of nurture over nature, Milo demonstrated every point perfectly. When she discussed the myth that pit bulls were naturally aggressive, Milo was calmly grooming himself in the corner like a cat. When someone argued that pit bulls couldn't be trusted around children, a young boy in the audience asked if he could pet Milo, and the gentle interaction that followed moved several audience members to tears. The most powerful moment came when an elderly woman shared that she had been attacked by a dog years earlier and had been afraid of all large dogs ever since. She had come to the meeting specifically to support breed restrictions, but watching Milo's gentle, almost meditative presence throughout the evening had begun to change her perspective. At the end of the presentation, she asked if she could meet Milo personally. Milo approached the nervous woman using all the cat-learned social skills he had mastered: slow movements, patient waiting for permission, and gentle contact only when invited. When the woman finally reached out to touch him, Milo responded with his characteristic soft chirping sounds and the gentle head bonks he had learned from Whiskers. By the end of their interaction, the woman was crying tears of healing, talking about how Milo had helped her overcome years of fear. The community center presentation led to invitations from schools, senior centers, and other organizations that wanted to meet this remarkable dog, who was changing minds and hearts wherever he went. Each appearance reinforced the same message: that individual animals, regardless of breed, were shaped far more by their experiences and environment than by genetics alone. Local media began picking up Milo's story, fascinated by the paradox of a pit bull who acted like a cat and used those behaviors to heal and help others. The first newspaper article, titled "The Gentle Giant Who Thinks He's a Cat," brought Milo regional attention. Soon, animal behaviorists from other universities were reaching out, wanting to study this unique case that challenged fundamental assumptions about canine development. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from the children in Sarah's neighborhood. Kids who had previously crossed the street when they saw Sarah walking Milo now ran up to greet him, calling out, "Hi, cat dog," and asking if he could show them his special purr. Parents who had once viewed Milo with suspicion now asked Sarah for advice about introducing their own children to dogs safely. The transformation wasn't just in how others saw Milo, it was in how the entire community began to think about animals' stereotypes and the power of nurturing to shape behavior. Milo had become living proof that love, patience, and the right environment could overcome any preconceived notion about what an animal was supposed to be. As Milo's fame grew, Sarah found herself navigating a world she had never expected to enter. The local news story had been picked up by regional media outlets, then by national morning shows, and eventually by international animal lovers who couldn't get enough of the Pitbull who thought he was a cat. Social media exploded with videos of Milo's unique behaviors, and Sarah's phone rarely stopped ringing with interview requests, collaboration offers, and messages from people sharing their own stories of animals that had defied expectations. The attention brought wonderful opportunities, but also unexpected challenges. Animal rights organizations wanted to use Milo as a poster child for Pitbull advocacy, while researchers pushed for more extensive studies of his behavior. Publishing houses offered book deals and television producers pitched reality show concepts. Through it all, Sarah remained focused on what mattered most: Milo's well-being and the genuine good he could do in the world. The breakthrough moment came when the National Therapy Animal Foundation reached out about creating a specialized program based on Milo's unique abilities. They had been following his work at Dr. Rodriguez's clinic and were impressed by his success rate with traumatized and anxious animals. The foundation wanted to develop a pilot program that would train other dogs in interspecies communication, using Milo's techniques to help animals in shelters, veterinary hospitals, and rescue organizations. Sarah was initially hesitant about the increased responsibility, but when she learned that the program could help thousands of animals, she knew they had to try. The foundation arranged for Milo to work with their head trainer, Dr. Patricia Williams, who had 30 years of experience in animal behavior modification. Dr. Williams was skeptical at first. The foundation's enthusiasm seemed to outweigh scientific evidence. But 5 minutes with Milo changed her perspective completely. "I've worked with thousands of therapy animals," Dr. Williams told Sarah after their first session, "but I've never seen anything like Milo's intuitive understanding of other animals' emotional states. He reads body language at a level that most human-animal behaviorists would envy. We're not just looking at training other dogs to do what Milo does. We're looking at revolutionizing how we approach animal-assisted therapy entirely." The pilot program began with 12 rescue dogs of various breeds and backgrounds. Each dog was paired with a team that included cats, rabbits, and other small animals to serve as teachers, just as Whiskers, Mittens, and Princess had done for Milo. The results were remarkable, though none of the other dogs achieved quite the same level of feline mimicry that Milo had mastered. What the program did demonstrate was that Milo's success wasn't just a unique accident, it was evidence of dogs' incredible capacity for adaptive learning when given the right environment and teachers. Several of the program dogs developed improved social skills, better emotional regulation, and enhanced ability to work with anxious or traumatized animals. Meanwhile, Milo's work continued to expand in unexpected directions. A children's hospital requested his services for their pediatric psychiatry unit, where his gentle presence and unique vocalizations seemed to calm young patients in ways that traditional therapy animals couldn't achieve. His ability to remain perfectly still for long periods made him ideal for working with children who were dealing with trauma or high anxiety. One particularly powerful case involved a 7-year-old girl named Emma who hadn't spoken since witnessing a traumatic event 6 months earlier. Traditional therapy approaches had made little progress, but when Milo was introduced to Emma's treatment plan, something beautiful began to unfold. Milo seemed to sense that Emma needed patient, non-demanding companionship, so he would simply lie beside her bed during therapy sessions, occasionally making his soft chirping sounds but never pressuring her for interaction. After several weeks, Emma began responding to Milo's presence by reaching out to touch his fur. Then she started making small sounds back to him when he chirped softly. The breakthrough came when Emma whispered her first words in months, not to her therapist or her parents, but to Milo. "Good dog, cat," she said quietly, and everyone in the room had to fight back tears. Emma's progress with Milo became a case study that was presented at pediatric therapy conferences across the country. Her therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, noted that Milo's unique communication style seemed to offer Emma a safe way to reconnect with the world. "Traditional therapy animals are wonderful," Dr. Kim explained, "but they still represent the energetic, sometimes unpredictable world that Emma was hiding from." Milo's cat-like calmness and patience created a bridge that she could cross at her own pace. The success stories multiplied, but perhaps none was more touching than Milo's work with elderly residents at Sunset Manor Nursing Home. Many of the residents had been forced to give up beloved pets when they moved to care facilities, and the loss of animal companionship had left them feeling isolated and depressed. Milo's visits brought something magical to the facility. His ability to sit quietly with residents for hours, providing comfort without demands, filled a need that traditional activities couldn't address. Many residents commented that Milo reminded them of cats they had loved, while others appreciated his dog-like loyalty and presence. He seemed to offer the best of both worlds, adapting his behavior to what each person needed most. Mrs. Patterson, a 93-year-old former teacher, had become increasingly withdrawn since arriving at Sunset Manor 6 months earlier. She rarely spoke to staff or participated in activities, spending most of her time staring out her window. But when Milo was introduced to her room, something shifted. He approached her chair slowly, then simply lay down beside her, occasionally making his gentle chirping sounds. Over several visits, Mrs. Patterson began talking to Milo about her life, her family, and the cats she had loved throughout her years. Staff members would find her having long, animated conversations with Milo, who listened with the patience of a trained counselor. Eventually, these private conversations with Milo gave her the confidence to begin engaging with other residents and staff members. Again, the impact on the nursing home was so significant that other facilities began requesting Milo's services. However, Sarah realized that one dog, no matter how special, couldn't meet the growing demand for his unique type of therapy work. This realization led to the expansion of the training program Dr. Williams had developed. The Foundation secured funding to establish the Interspecies Communication Therapy program at 5 locations across the country. Each center would house teams of dogs living with cats and other small animals, replicating the environment that had shaped Milo's remarkable abilities. While the program couldn't guarantee another Milo, it was already producing dogs with enhanced empathy, improved emotional regulation, and better ability to work with traumatized animals and humans. As the program grew, so did the scientific understanding of what made Milo special. Brain imaging studies revealed that his neural pathways for processing social cues were significantly different from those of traditionally raised dogs. He showed increased activity in areas associated with patience, observation, and subtle communication, traits typically associated with felines rather than canines. Dr. Rodriguez, who had been documenting Milo's development since his first veterinary visit, was invited to present their findings at the International Conference on Animal Behavior. Her presentation, titled Challenging Species-Specific Behavioral Assumptions, a case study in cross-species learning, received a standing ovation and opened new avenues for research into animal cognition and adaptability. But for all the scientific acclaim and media attention, the most important measure of Milo's impact remained the individual lives he touched. Letters poured in from around the world, from parents whose children had been helped by therapy animals trained in Milo's techniques, from pet owners who had learned to better understand their animals' emotional needs, and from animal welfare workers who had found new ways to help traumatized animals heal. The transformation was complete. Milo had evolved from the abandoned puppy into a global ambassador for the power of love, patience, and understanding to overcome any obstacle. He had proven that nurture could triumph over nature, that stereotypes could be shattered, and that sometimes the most extraordinary teachers came in the most unexpected forms. 3 years after that rainy morning when Sarah found a shivering puppy on her doorstep, Milo had become something nobody could have predicted, a symbol of hope and transformation that reached far beyond the animal world. His story had touched millions of people globally, but the most profound changes had happened quietly, in the everyday moments that made up his life with Sarah and his feline family. The apartment that had once housed 3 cats and accidentally acquired a dog had evolved into something entirely unique. Visitors often commented that they couldn't tell where cat territory ended and dog space began, because Milo had so completely integrated into the feline social structure. Whiskers, now an elderly cat of 15, had maintained her role as Milo's primary teacher and grooming partner. Their daily rituals of mutual cleaning and quiet companionship remained the foundation of Milo's emotional stability. Mittens had become Milo's adventure companion, leading him on explorations of high shelves and sunny windowsills that Milo navigated with increasingly impressive agility for a 70-pound dog. Princess, ever the supervisor, had appointed herself as Milo's personal trainer, teaching him the finer points of proper napping posture and the art of selective hearing when humans called at inconvenient times. But the most remarkable development was how Milo had begun teaching other animals in return. The apartment had become an informal rehabilitation center for foster animals that Sarah occasionally took in through her work with local rescue organizations. Traumatized kittens, anxious adult cats, and even the occasional small dog found healing in Milo's patient presence and gentle instruction in the art of being calm. A young feral kitten named Storm, who had been completely unsocialized to human contact, spent 2 months learning from Milo how to trust and interact safely with people. Milo seemed to understand exactly what Storm needed, demonstrating through his own behavior how to approach humans for affection, how to signal when space was needed, and how to find comfort in quiet companionship. By the time Storm was ready for adoption, he had transformed from a terrified wild creature into a confident, affectionate pet, largely thanks to Milo's mentorship. The scientific community continued to study Milo's impact on animal behavior research. His case had inspired new approaches to animal rehabilitation and had changed how researchers thought about critical socialization periods in domestic animals. Dr. Martinez's research team had published several papers based on their observations of Milo, contributing to a growing body of evidence that animals were far more adaptable and cognitively flexible than previously understood. The interspecies communication therapy program that had grown from Milo's example was now operating in 12 cities, with waiting lists of facilities wanting to participate. While no other dog had achieved Milo's exact level of feline mimicry, many had developed enhanced empathy and improved ability to work with both animals and humans in therapeutic settings. The program had helped hundreds of animals find homes and had provided comfort to thousands of people in hospitals, nursing homes, and crisis centers. Sarah often reflected on how dramatically her life had changed since that morning when she chose to help an abandoned puppy rather than simply calling animal control. Her career had evolved too. She now worked part-time with the Therapy Animal Foundation, helping to develop training protocols and supporting families who wanted to raise therapy animals using Milo's model. The work was fulfilling in ways she had never imagined possible. The media attention had eventually settled into a manageable rhythm. Milo still received interview requests and invitations to events, but Sarah had learned to be selective, choosing opportunities that genuinely advanced understanding of animal behavior or supported animal welfare causes. They had turned down reality show offers and commercial endorsements, preferring to focus on the educational and therapeutic work that had always been Milo's true calling. Local impact remained the most meaningful measure of success. The neighborhood coffee shop had become an unofficial meeting place for animal lovers who came hoping to catch a glimpse of the famous cat dog. Mrs. Chen had even created a special Milo latte, with proceeds going to local animal rescue organizations. The community center where Milo had first challenged assumptions about pit bulls now hosted monthly educational events about responsible pet ownership and the importance of individual assessment over breed stereotyping. Children who had grown up watching Milo's gentle interactions had developed a completely different understanding of what dogs could be. Many had asked their parents for pets specifically because they wanted animals that were calm and nice like Milo. Parents reported that their children showed increased empathy toward all animals and better understanding of how to read animal body language and respect boundaries. The most touching testament to Milo's influence came in the form of letters from other animal owners who had applied his story's lessons to their own pets. A family in Oregon wrote about how watching videos of Milo had inspired them to be more patient with their rescued Pitbull mix, leading to breakthroughs in the dog's anxiety issues. A shelter in Texas implemented cat mentorship programs for dogs with behavioral challenges, reporting improved adoption rates and fewer returns. As Milo approached his 4th birthday, his days maintained the peaceful rhythm that had always characterized his life. Mornings began with the ritual stretch and grooming session with his cat family. Afternoons often included therapy visits or training sessions with other animals. Evenings were reserved for quiet time at home, where Milo could be found curled up in impossible positions on furniture designed for much smaller creatures, surrounded by his feline teachers, who had shaped him into something the world had never seen before. The legacy was already secure. Milo had proven that love could overcome any obstacle, that patience could achieve what force never could, and that sometimes the most profound teachers came in the most unexpected forms. He had changed how people thought about pit bulls, about animal behavior, and about the power of nurturing to shape any life into something beautiful. But perhaps most importantly, Milo had remained exactly what he had always been, a gentle soul who found joy in simple pleasures, comfort in quiet companionship, and purpose in bringing peace to anyone who needed it. He was still the puppy who had learned everything about life from 3 cats, and in doing so, had taught the world something invaluable about the transformative power of love, acceptance, and the courage to be different.